Oh my goodness. Here we are, this lovely Wednesday. Just a little listen, Sal. I'm excited for a little escape from the world we live in to talk about, go back into a simpler time to the 90s. Do you remember the 90s, Sal?
Oh my God, I remember it more and more every day.
Yeah.
Although it does seem to be more and more fictitious the further away we get from it.
Yeah.
Like,
Remember, well, our biggest issue in the 90s were, according to Fight Club, if I recall correctly, was like we had no wars to fight. What a bummer that we had
no
no.
wars and endless jobs. What a nightmare hellscape we lived in.
Oh my god. Keep in mind, I like Fight Club. It's a
Yeah.
satire. Those were jokes, but it is
We
funny.
were promised to be they told us we were going to be movie stars.
Yeah. Oh my god. That's a movie
Now
I should.
let's commit domestic terrorism. Like, what?
Yeah, for real. Yeah, man. It is crazy how, like, we listen, gang, we definitely had problems in the 90s.
Oh my God.
But in hindsight, they feel quaint.
Yeah, I wish we had those problems. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there were. There was still, AIDS was still a problem that was
Yeah.
prevalent, and there was a significant amount of otherism when it came to people of different persuasions. But
Don't worry, we're going back to it.
right,
We're going
don't worry, we still have those problems.
exactly.
And we're broke.
All those problems. But listen, no, this is an escape. We're escaping to a simpler time, back into an era of superhero movies where they would look at all the marquee, top, most popular heroes and like, let's not do any of those guys. Let's let's pick from either some obscure pulp characters, which, by the way, speaking for myself, I love those characters. It was just weird. There was just a weird instinct. I love the Phantom. And I love the Shadow, and I haven't seen the Shadow movie. I have a lot of nostalgia for the Phantom movie. All I'm saying, Dick Tracy, love Dick Tracy. It's just a weird instinct that was the direction we went, but then also simultaneously, but also, what about Spawn and Steel? It's like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there were conversations. I would love to see either a YouTube documentary or a full-fledged documentary, not of the image revolution. I've seen enough of those.
Yeah.
But I want to see conversations with Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, at the company. Todd excised from that because he got what he wanted.
Yes.
And no, it wasn't good enough. I got to spend 35 years trying to make it better.
Yeah.
But I want to see the conversations and how far it went with Hollywood with respect to Youngblood adaptations, Wildcats adaptations.
That's the thing that blows my mind.
The Prophet. Where are those? Like, how far did you get?
Yeah, because I was just thinking about it. Because as I was sitting down, I have a comic rack behind me, and I have, when they did the New 52, I just peeking around was the Grifter. They did a Grifter series, which wasn't that great.
No.
We figured it out with him. We found a way to fit him into the DC, but it's weird, like, why not? Wildcats would be comparatively so much easier than even Spawn. You know what I mean?
And significantly cheaper.
Yeah.
And I think that's really where it hits on everything we're talking about here, which is, of course, like, Steel was not nearly as mired in complications as a Superman adaptation or reboot might have been in 1996, 97.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So for this, it's like, oh, well, we could do a Superman adjacent movie. Thank
you for tying this into our main topic, which is, this is Krypton Academy. This is a Superman show, and you guys might be like, what, Steel? And it's like, yeah, this is John. I thought the same thing. This is John Henry Irons. This is the Superman character Steel, just without any of the Superman trappings, which I think works better for this character than somebody, say, like a Venom or a Joker, where it's like, can you really? Steel, it's like, you know what? You can. Steel kind of, it would be cool. There was part of me that was like, it would have been cool if there was some sort of, like, nod to, like, Superman's out here. Like,
I agree. I feel like it was just a thing where they went, the less Superman, the better. I mean, how they got Shaq was clearly because of the Superman connection.
Yeah, because that was the tattoo he has is his tattoo, right?
That's his real tattoo. Yeah, he loves Superman. Though I don't know how deep you went into the weeds when it came to the behind the scenes stuff, but Shaq was not their first choice, and their first choice would have been bonkers.
Yeah, well, I have let's compare notes, all right? Because normally I try to seed this in, but
I don't want
to like get into. So in 1997, this is Steel, starring Shaquille O'Neal, who is like 10 minutes in, I texted Sal like, "Wow, Shaq is bad."
Yeah, he's real bad. Like it's not even like Space Jam, but you could feel Shaq going, well, come on, they made Space Jam. Michael Jordan's no better than I am.
And that's true. Here's the thing, like, man. Here's what we've learned. Here's what I think I've learned between the two Space Jams. I think these are the only points of reference. The two Space Jams, Steel and Kazam. Kazam. All right.
The Shaq
which
movie.
Was the big Sinbad one. And then you'll see like a video online of like, no, it was real. It's like, no, Sinbad made a parody making fun of you people for thinking it's real. And then they took that parody and they're like, it's real. It's like, oh God, we're so cooked, man. We're so fucking cooked. Anyway. Yeah. So one of the things I pulled from this, and I will say Shaq, as the movie goes, he was less bad I noticed him being less bad as the movie went on. And that might have been that might have been Stockholm syndrome.
I think that's like a frog in the boiling water kind of situation where it's like, well, now that I'm in it, it's kind of comfortable,
It's charming because you responded, you're like, but he's committed. I'm like, you know what? He is committed.
Well, and that's like the thing that I want to walk away from when it comes to this whole enterprise. Like this movie, outside of all the other Superman movies we've seen, right? We've seen 5 Superman movies, one of them being Supergirl, and they're all from the same cloth.
Yeah.
Right? They're all from the same world, same actor, same Salkinds.
Yeah.
One exception, I believe.
Yeah, I think 4. 4 we were out from under them, and it didn't help that much.
Yeah, but it all had the same kind of theme and tone. This is the most 90s forward Superman project. Ripped straight from the headlines. Steel was created in 93, and it was revolutionary comparatively. It was something new, something fresh, something urban, and it worked as a comic book. And I think I get why you would want to make it into a movie, because it's like, oh man, we already had scripts like this lying around.
Yeah.
Adding a guy in a suit, not so bad. But this feels the most like a movie. Like this is all the worst impulses of Hollywood, but also you understand where they all come from. Like this is a movie.
Yeah.
They're making, and it's like they're so close. Like you have shades. There's almost some Iron Man in this. There's almost some Superman in this. Like,
well, again, I like to contextualize this. So this is 1997, and so
Batman and Robin is the same year.
Same year. Not so when you say Batman and Robin same year, you're like, well, okay, so this is what we're doing. Counterpoint: Men in Black is also the same year.
Independence Day is Independence Day was 96.
It's around here because and then a year after this is Blade.
That's blows everyone's mind.
Exactly. So it's one of those like when you take it as an artifact.
Yeah,
it's not, because you're right. We're going to get to. There's one specific sequence that I'm like, wait. This sequence actually works. Like what we're doing works. It's just, I think it's the director they got is a gentleman by the name of Kenneth Johnson, who is a white man. Keep that in mind as we talk about that. If you've seen the movie, keep that in mind as you're watching.
And he wrote it as well.
He wrote it as well. And he's a TV director. So that
it looks like it.
Yeah. The only thing that stands out is some of the effects stuff is not awful, like especially when they do the sonic gun. I'm like, that's actually not too bad for now times.
the sonic gun effect is like a staple. We've seen it. It works. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Other stuff, because it's 97, a lot of it is practical, so as a result it's only going to hold up more as we get more and more high def. So as opposed to movies made in 2003 and onward, where it's like, what, we got computers?
So this was originally started when producer Quincy Jones was looking to make this movie. Wesley Snipes was Kenneth Johnson's first choice for the lead role.
Wesley Snipes in Steel. What? Like this would have, because this feels like a campy kind of almost after school special-esque movie.
Yes.
But if Wesley Snipes was Steel, it would not have, because there's a lot of weird tone in this movie where like a senator dies in the first 5 minutes of
and we drop.
And you're like, oh, that's kind of like serious, and then it's a joke.
Yeah. Yep.
But with Wesley Snipes, it would have been like, oh, this is like anything Wesley Snipes does, like where it's Demolition Man, where it's like this is a joke, but also it's kind of serious, like, or at least not serious if he's taking it seriously.
The difficulty is, and especially when you hear like they originally, they've been trying to make Black Panther movies forever, and they wanted Wesley Snipes, and it's like, yeah. But Wesley Snipes is Blade. Like Wesley Snipes, that one, that's perfect. He could have been good in Steel and good in Black
Snipes
Panther.
Crushed Black Panther.
Blade
in the early '90s, though, he would have crushed it.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's one of those Blade's if you had to pick one of those, Blade's the perfect fit for Wesley Snipes. That was call.
No. If I have to like recast any of those kind of movies back in the day, it's like, oh, if it was a '90s Black Panther movie, no, I don't know how to pronounce his name, and I'm sorry.
Mm.
It's the dude who played the Kree who makes fun of Star-Lord. He's in everything. He's Papa Midnight in
Constantine. Or my
no.
Djimon
Hounsou. He plays the
Djimon Hounsou. Yeah, Djimon Hounsou. Oh, dude, is Black Panther. Oh,
he wanted to be Black Panther so bad, and he would have been amazing.
Dude, MCU's wasted him. In fact, every movie wastes Djimon Hounsou.
Every movie wastes him.
Oh,
although I will say,
for 5 minutes, and then they kill him off. I'm like, what are we doing, gang? What's happening?
What are we doing? No, he's amazing in Constantine. He's like really going for it, and I'm like, this is a good use of that character actor.
Yeah. So
Black
they wanted Snipes. They wanted Snipes, and then they approached Shaquille O'Neal originally for a Hardware adaptation. And if the kids at home are not familiar with Hardware, he's a milestone character.
That would have been kind of amazing. It also would have been relegated. Like Steel is totally forgotten.
Yeah.
But Hardware, I think, would be one of those things like Tank Girl, where it's like, we got to throw on Hardware.
Yeah. Well, and
it would have been R-rated. Like, it would have been serious. It would have had more milestone involvement.
In the 90s, we would have made it R-rated. And I think the other thing, Shaquille O'Neal, they do the one thing they get right about having Shaq in the role of Steel is they do the Fast and Furious thing, where like this guy's massive. And just so everybody at home know, he's 7'1". I'm 6'6". I live in Hollywood and I tower over everyone. Shaq is compared to your average Hollywood actor, Shaq is a monster.
He is a straight up monster, and he's every time and there are not a lot of wide shots.
Yeah, there's a couple. Yeah, anytime he shares a camera, they have a 2-shot of somebody. It has to be angled weird because of how big he is.
Yeah. He's so big. I'm actually worried for him. Like there are moments where he's running, and I'm like, he's just gonna fall over.
Yeah, dude, the running, they're like, let's not do a chase sequence with Shaq, gang. What are we doing?
No,
come on, man.
No chase sequence. Whether it's him on foot or him in a friggin' or him on a motorcycle, it's not gonna work.
Yeah, we don't have Vin Diesel do foot chases in the Fast and Furious movies. Come on, gang. But they do the Fast and Furious thing where it's like he's massive, so like we're gonna have him
play it up.
Yeah, lifting heavy things, and it's like, yeah, that guy's so big, I bet he could lift that, probably.
And I will say, John Henry Irons in the comics is also supposed to be huge. Like he's not. I don't think he's Shaq height, but he is big. Like he's imposing, and I think that was a way for them to kind of like homage Dwayne McDuffie, who of course was modeled for John Henry Irons and was big, but also he was like a chemical engineer and like a super smart person. Yeah, so this very like quiet personality, and so I love the idea of like this huge dude who's like, hey, what's up? Like, let me just help out. Like, I'm a smart guy. You think I'm imposing, but actually I'm like I got like 3 doctorates, and it's like. I love that juxtaposition, and I think John Henry Irons is a great idea. And on paper, Shaq, yes, right? Mm-hmm. Look, Space Jam. I mean, again, I don't hate to keep beating a dead horse here, but Space Jam. Nobody thought Space Jam was going to work out.
Yeah, and again, like I was saying, I think my lesson is the only athletes that we should cast in movies are wrestlers. Yeah, why would that be? I wonder why that would be. Anyway.
Yeah, maybe because they're the only the biggest muscle they stretch is their acting one.
Is their acting, yeah, but so the physicality of it, but that's the benefit if you did Hardware. Is Hardware you cast Lawrence Fishburne and you got a movie. You cast Lawrence Fishburne as Hardware in the 90s, you got a movie.
Back then, Larry Fishburne would have friggin' crushed a Hardware flick. That would have been amazing. You give that to like maybe Spike Lee or somebody like who's hungry, you know. Ooh, what a dangerous movie that would have been.
I remember, you hear, and I think it all worked out. But if I recall correctly, around Pulp Fiction time, Tarantino wanted to do a Luke Cage movie with Lawrence
Yes,
Fishburne, and I'm like, that is a movie I would watch.
that movie I would own on 4K.
I would own it. I would watch it on repeat. Anyway, so this director did The Bionic Woman, Alien Nation, and The Incredible Hulk. They described him as the blue-collar Batman, which you see shades of that. And the film
Superman character, just called blue collar Superman.
Superman. I think because gadgets, we think Batman, and Batman still sells tickets back then. Still sells tickets now. Like the economy for Batman has changed. No, Batman still sells tickets. But the filming was weird because not only was he doing this movie, but he was also training for the Olympics. Shaquille O'Neal was training for the Olympics and playing for the Lakers. So filming was weird. O'Neal had one read through of the script before the Olympics, and then worked with acting coach Ben Martin in between games to work on his character. When O'Neal returned to act with the rest of the cast, he had all his lines memorized. I love that. That's the listen. He had his lines.
Learned all his lines. I mean, he's committed. He was committed. And with Shaq, it's like, look, I'm doing a lot of things. The Olympics thing, this is my only shot to be in the Olympics. I'm going to do it. Yeah. I'm on the Lakers. That has an expiration date. I could spin off into movies.
Yeah.
I need to impress these people. I need to show that at least I'm committed. Mm-hmm. And it's just maybe a little more time, maybe another acting coach. Shaq could have pulled it off. I'm being very generous. This movie is not very good, and he's not great in it.
Yeah, he's not good in it. We've gotten the super chat. Unpheasant one. How much more would you like the movie if it had the S and the cape? I don't think the S and the cape work without Superman being a thing.
Yeah, he'd need to have already been they'd have to make any references to Superman existing in the larger world.
Yes.
Which they easily could have done. And as a kid, I assumed they would.
Yeah.
Because I remember when this movie was being hyped by Wizard Magazine, and they were like, gonna be shit. Like, they didn't even, they were not favorable for that movie when it was, they were like, Shaq, look at him. And then the half helmet, which as it turns out, Charlie Cox would rock, but Shaq can't make work. I don't know why, but it is not a good look.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I will admit, any actor that has to wear a mask as a superhero, they take that crap off immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Shaq wears it every time he steals.
Yeah, every time you steal, that is a good point. That is a good point. How do we end, just for reference, on Rotten Tomatoes, this has an 8% with an audience score of 19%. That's what we're getting into, gang. Let's roll through it. So I noticed right off the top, we have the Warner Brothers production logo. Why isn't this on Max, Warner Brothers? Why'd I have to rent it?
Great question. I assumed it would going to be on Max, and then I saw the $4 price tag, and I'm like, oh no,
no. It's
what have I done?
Fubi or something. Like, there's a streaming app that's like sports dedicated. I'm like, I'm not even going to bother with the free trial that I got to make sure I cancel in time. Nope, I'm just going to rent it.
I'll just rent it. And you know what? I got to say, I don't want to harp on it. This movie we needed a Generation X in our Superman lineup, and this is that, right?
Where is that.
You're look at them going for it.
Yes.
And it's a real fumble.
Mm-hmm.
But do you regret having seen this?
No, honestly, no, I don't. It's one of those and I think part of it is, even though I didn't watch this is my first time seeing it.
Yeah.
Part of it is that nostalgia for just this time of movies, the 90s of it. And I was like, oh yeah, man, this is kind of quaint. And then it is so hilariously stupid that it is kind of charming. This movie's not without its charm.
Oh, there are moments, yes, where it's like, only in this period could you have gotten away with this.
Yeah. So we're going to keep going into it. If I didn't mention with the previous super chat, if you want to read your comment on me here, throw it in the super chat. Yes. We'll get it up there.
By the way, they cut that cape. He was going to have a cape, and they cut it out.
I think
because they wanted it to be because it was so Hollywood, man. It was it was part of the convincing was we're going to make a modern knight in shining armor type of thing, and part of that was removing the cape, and I'm like, that is so real. That definitely happened. Where these Hollywood producers we're making Ben-Hur, No, man,
I truthfully, I agree with you, but I think for this movie, I don't know that the cape would have worked. I think it would have made him even more cumbersome.
Oh, it would have looked real goofy. He would have tripped on that thing, no question.
Yeah. So I think it was the right call. So we open with the title credits with the theme. Or did they sneak some of the Superman theme into that theme?
Totally.
Yeah.
They owned it. They were like, we own it. Use it.
Use it. Put that John Williams in there. We open with the tank rolling through a forest, which that's where you want your tanks to go, is the forest.
And they blend right in.
Yeah, rolling over trees. That's what tanks are designed to do. Totally. They're trying future guns and they're blasting the tank with future guns, and guys get out there like, we're cooked, chief, and the commanding officer's like, I thought I smelled roasted nuts, and you're like, okay, so this is the movie we're doing.
All right, we're doing this.
This is where I have in my notes, wow, Shaq is bad, because here's the thing, man, this is like fucking what's his face in literally The Happening, Mark Wahlberg in The Happening, where you're like, oh, this is a science guy. No, he's not. Nope. He's not.
Nope.
No, he's not.
Barely qualifies as a high school science teacher.
No, he's not. Sorry, gang. Shaq is very charismatic, a lot more athletic than he'll ever be. He's not a super genius. I don't believe it.
Nope. I just don't buy it.
He's not inventing future weapons. We also get Nathaniel Burke, who's played by Judd Nelson, who's doing. Judd Nelson in villain roles, like, yeah, this works. This is good.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, it's Judd Nelson, man. He's doing his thing. He has a posse. He's harsh.
Yeah. Oh my God. Anyway, yeah, we're gonna. I think I always refer to John Henry Irons as Shaq in my notes, but I try to refer to Judd Nelson as Burke. I try to keep to it.
Yeah.
So they're trying out these weapons. They go to this place. They're like, this village has been set aside for our testing. I'm like, yeah, set aside. Sure.
Yeah, we evacuated it when we killed everyone in it.
Yeah. Okay. We get this one of those things that like Shaq is like, yeah, this weapon will be good because it won't. We can use it in armed conflict, but not kill people. I'm like, all right.
Oh yeah, well, we're really looking for those weapons right now, definitely.
Yeah, cool. I mean, again, we're trying to set him up as the superhero archetype. Okay, so the Burke, I love this. So I have this other show I do with Adam called Slash Pick, where we go through slasher movies, and my wife and I just watched the Final Destination movies, and I love a thing that always has a setting, a dangerous setting. Like, why? So Burke, they're trying out this weapon, and Burke turns it all the way up, and the sound wave like hits a wall and then bounces back and destroys the building they're in. And like, why do we even have? There's not even a piece of tape that says not past this point. Like, why?
Put a piece of tape over it. Yeah, no, but he wants to impress her so bad. He needs that contract.
Yeah, or whatever. It's not even his. The contract would go to the military. How does this benefit you? Whatever.
I don't know.
So this is what Sal was talking about. The senator's there. She gets crushed by a rock. Shaq's best friend or whatever, Sparky, loses the use of her legs and then gets sent to like a military insane asylum or something.
I guess she's just so like wrought with grief that she goes nuts, and so they lock her away.
It's like supposed to be like a VA hospital, but it's shot the way we shoot like One Flew Over.
100%. They're like, just shoot it like one. Like they had access to an abandoned insane asylum, and they were like, oh, we'll just use that.
Yeah, sure. I hope our VA hospitals aren't like that. And also, couldn't she go home? Like,
right? She has a home, right?
She's like locked up there. Shaq has to go save her. The funny thing, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but one of my favorite things about that scene is she's like, no, don't move me. And he picks her up and everybody's clapping and cheering. It's like, she's not consenting to this, gang.
Yeah. What? And like, she might have a medical reason for why she doesn't want to be moved. Like,
yeah. Oh
no!
Man.
Oh no! Now I'm more paralyzed.
Great, good job, Shaq, saving the day. But yeah, this is where you first get the good use of Shaq, and that there's this giant slab of building on her, and he like Herculeses it off of her, and I'm like, yeah, I'd buy that. I believe it.
Cool. Yeah, he's like, oh man, it's like this guy has like this duality he just has to fight against, where he's like, I know I'm huge, but I want to be known for my brains.
Dude, that's a better movie, man. Like, if you get a better actor, and guys, I can't stress this enough. I've met Terry Crews, and if you've seen Terry Crews in like Brooklyn Nine-Nine or whatever, he looks huge compared to that cast. I'm bigger than him. Tall, by bigger I mean taller. The dude could bench lift me, but like, but I'm like, I remember meeting him. I'm like, oh my God, I'm bigger than you. And so
How is this possible?
And Shaq dwarfs me, man. So like, just keep that. Shaq is huge.
He's really big. It again, it makes me uncomfortable how big he is.
Yeah. In the super chat, Bear Farmer. Ooh, farming some bears. Steel being one of 4, Reign of Superman. Do you think the movie would have been better if it was about any of the other 3? Cyborg, Eradicator, or Superboy, or even some combo of Superboy and Steel? Again, I think you'd have to acknowledge there'd have to be a Superman with those 3.
Yeah, this movie is the easiest extrication of Superman out. Like, just no, he's inspired by nothing, and it just kind of coincidentally is related to Superman in some way. The movie you make is Superboy, 100%.
Yeah. You get some young, like, we're out of the Brat Pack era, but you know what I mean. You get whatever the 90s equivalent of that is. Probably
you get some 30-year-old playing a teenager, and he just douches it up. Like, that's the movie. It's
wait, when was Edward Scissorhands? You probably get Johnny Depp.
Yeah, Johnny. Well, like Scissorhands is like 87 or something like that.
Is
or
it
89,
really?
maybe?
Scissorhands was after 1990.
1990. There you go.
So 1997. Yeah, so he's probably just aged out of it at this point because he's done with the whole
21 Jump Street and stuff.
Jump Street era and stuff like that. Well, I'm not going to spend too much time on it, but what you do here's how if they had the instincts then that we have now, what you would have done is done Tim Burton's Death of Superman.
Yeah.
And then done your Steel movie and your Superboy movie.
Yeah.
And then the sequel, oh my God, this actually wouldn't suck. And then the sequel to Death of Superman is The Reign of Superman, and you tie them all together. Ooh, I kind of wish.
You know who you get? I got 2 cast members I got 2 castings for 1997. Here's who they would have cast.
Yeah.
Freddie Prinze Jr.
Okay.
Here's who they should have got.
Yeah.
Ryder Strong.
Ooh, from Boy Meets World. Yeah, you're right.
Crush Superboy back then. Leather jacket, douchebag attitude, Tana Moon. Oh my God.
You also, or what the other one they might have gone with is pulling from another sitcom, Jonathan Taylor Thomas, because we were doing a lot with him late 90s.
Yeah, JTT would have been big. Yeah.
But that's what you do. So you do your Death of Superman.
Yep.
You do Superboy, Steel, and maybe, even though she wasn't part of it, Supergirl, because she's more bankable than Cyborg, Superman, or Eradicator. We're not.
And you go Peter David Supergirl, where it's like, skateboard, new suit. Yeah.
And then you tie it back into your Reign of Superman. Let's go back in time in the 90s. Pitch this to them.
I think we got ourselves a movie that could make over $100 million. Remember when that used to be the number? That movie would have made $100 million if we had done this, that, and the other thing. And I'm like, $100 million? How quaint.
Unpheasant says, I'm surprised they never tried a Guardian movie. Are you really surprised that they didn't?
I'm not at all. I am surprised they didn't make, after like Mask, they didn't make a Guardian show.
Yeah, Guardian. I mean, I'm always surprised whenever when they're like in Supergirl, like Guardian, I'm like, oh, pulling Guardian. Oh, wow.
Oh, wow. Deep cuts today. Yeah. That's because Warner Brothers wasn't aware that they owned a comic book company. Like,
yeah. So there's this tribunal. This is such a weird thing. This is all framed as part of the court-martialing of Burke, who is court-martialed so that he can go off and do his villain things.
Yep. Great. By the way, does this movie feel like it's strung together by a script that is dependent on what sets we already have from other movies?
Yeah.
Like tell me I'm wrong. The base,
yes,
which is a junkyard.
Yep.
That isn't just the place they go and they live, right? I'm like, that is the same junkyard or like homeless camp.
Hey, listen, man, how many times did we go to the Fox Forest in any of those X-Men movies? You know what I mean?
The Fox Forest or Hill Valley / Kingston Falls / wherever.
We love it. We love it.
Follow.
And here's the other thing that makes me think that we could have acknowledged Superman existing, because Shaq goes back to LA and it's like, yeah, you just say Metropolis is on the East Coast,
over there
on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Donezo.
Yeah. Right? Or just Supergirl it. He's on another planet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And so this is where we get one of a series of running gags about Shaq not being able to do free throws. Me not being a sportsman, I had to look up, is this a joke because he is a basketball player? Or, I looked it up too early because I thought this was going to be a one-off joke, not a runner. It ended up being a runner, and it explained itself to me, so I shouldn't have looked it up. But then I had to be like, Oh no, it's because Shaq was bad at free throws. Got it. Yes. Yes.
And I was like, wasn't Patrick Ewing more known for being bad at jump shots? Okay, I guess that's fair.
Yeah.
But they worked that in. You could feel that being like a thing that was not in the script. They were just like, keep putting that in there.
And once they did it more than twice, I was like, okay, so the payoff has to be that he accomplishes it at some point. Otherwise, this joke is purposeless.
No. And like, unlike movies made today, this does pay off.
This does pay off. I was like, once is a fun little aside. More than once, you've got to be building to something. So Burke also heads back to LA and he meets a guy, an old friend of his who has the most 90s drug dealer hair you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah, big time.
And this guy ends up this is very much, sorry gang, not to get political, but this is very much an Elon Musk Trump situation where you think drug dealer guy is the main guy. No, Burke is the main bad guy.
No, it's evil corporate guy. Which like, it was the 90s. Also, back then we were distrustful of our corporate overlords.
Oh, wouldn't that, we forgot dude, because I've been doing a lot of stuff. Sal just handed me my segue. I've been doing a lot of shows talking about cyberpunk stuff. Why I've been talking about cyberpunk? It's not like I have a comic at dangerboycomic.com that you can go check out that's a cyberpunk thriller. But it's funny talking about that stuff because the things that kind of come up is cyberpunk is a very urbanized dystopia, which lends itself to superhero stories because superheroes tend to be an urban fantasy mostly. And it also it springs from like you're talking about this distrust and this disdain of the greed is good 80s Reagan era just corporate overreach that we learned. We watched Total Recall, we watched Blade Runner, we watched RoboCop, and we learned nothing from those movies. Not a goddamn thing.
Nope.
Insane. So whoops. But anyway, if also you have a distrust of corporations, go to dangerboycomic.com, support indie comics. This is a cyberpunk thriller written by me, drawn by Sean Peacock. Sean is doing some incredible work. And it is a cyberpunk action thriller. It is also my first time writing a superhero comic. And what makes it both a superhero comic and a cyberpunk comic is it's me trying to push the superhero genre into the 21st century. We'll kind of get into this later, where between this, I'm assuming you've watched this week's Daredevil.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, between this and Daredevil, it is having a guy in a suit just run around the streets is stupid. It just looks stupid. it just looks dumb. And so, and also having them stop muggers. It's like, what are we doing? Like, what a waste of time. And so with that in mind, like we even talk about this from Patreon. Oh, multiple plugs all at once. Patreon.com/only stupid answers. Sal and I are talking about Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, where we're trying to thread the needle of like, we're trying to acknowledge how our relationship with like crime and stuff has changed while also do a Spider-Man story. So he's stopping on muggers, but then he's having them go apologize. And I'm like, we're bending ourselves over backwards to do something we don't need to do anymore. And and it feels like corporate superheroes especially are struggling really hard with that. I don't have to worry about that. This is my comic. I don't have to answer to anybody. The only people I have to answer to is you, the audience. So and it allows me a lot of freedom in reimagining what superhero stories could be like now, dealing with the stuff we're dealing with now, while also reintegrating a lot of the stuff that I think we forgot from Superman's first appearance, Spider-Man's first appearance, some of the counterculture stuff that's baked into superhero storytelling. So all of that's there. If you like superheroes, if you hate superheroes, whatever your opinion on that is, if you're looking for something new and fresh and a fresh take on it, that's what we're trying to do over at Danger Boy. So go to dangerboycomic.com. Back it. As of this recording, we are 120% funded. We are working on our second stretch goal. The comic is happening. Every physical tier now gets these exclusive stickers with illustrations by Tango. And we're working towards adding more pages to the comic, including a backstory to our antagonist, Hardshell. So help us achieve that, please, and thank you. Go to dangerboycomic.com. Now back to what we were doing in the 90s. So Burke basically worms his way into this other guy's organization to the point where like there's this woman that I guess is supposed to be he's a weapons dealer. I keep wanting to call him drug dealer because he got drug dealer.
No, I do the same thing because it's so ubiquitous in the 90s, like comic book fiction to demonize drug lords.
Yes.
The other one, like it's drugs and then like weapons, and weapons is the second one, but it's still like so much less of the pie. So I
That's
completely
so
understand.
funny. What a funny instinct we have as a culture where we're like, no, drugs are the ultimate evil. What about the guys
Drugs are
selling
bad.
unregulated weapons? I guess that's also bad. It's the same
Yeah.
thing with like rated R, like, you know, this one's PG-13, a guy's head explodes and this gets ripped to shreds or whatever. But if we show one titty, that's an R rating. And it's
Whoa!
like, what are we doing?
You destroyed the Super Bowl.
Yes.
If I had a nickel for every movie in the 90s, in 1997, that came
Yeah.
out that was based on a superhero that starred a black protagonist
Yeah.
about bad weapons
Mm-hmm.
that are super powerful and also need to be destroyed, I'd have 2 nickels.
Yeah.
Which would be weird, but still, not a lot. Because Spawn is about that too. Spawn is literally about like big crazy weapons and a bio weapon that's like we were talking about that and I was like, oh my god, this is Spawn.
It's funny, and I don't feel smart enough to really like unpack it, but with like Steel and Spawn and a lot of the other stuff we're doing, it's like it's crazy in the 90s like how open we were. And I think I would imagine if I could talk to a cultural anthropologist that's a more brushed up on what was going on in the 90s, I would imagine the growth of hip-hop culture, and probably if you're thinking with Shaq and Michael Jordan, basketball and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's just funny in the 90s of like, we're just trying, black heroes and whatever, and that's just the thing we're doing.
Well, they're like, why wouldn't it be universally accepted? I mean, like, we're making black forward TV shows, like it's just a part of our culture, and we're absorbing a assload of like black art influences in our like generic culture, in our homogenized like mainstream top 3 channels culture, that why would people push back on it?
And it's just one of those, now it's like people are like, oh, woke, oh, DEI, oh, get the fuck out of here. Get out of here, man.
My dad was really mad when that happened, and he never let it go, and then he instilled that value into me as a kid, and now I'm also rageful and angry and resentful. But thankfully, because I can't say the N-word in public, I've been given special code words to say instead.
Exactly.
You're a piece of shit.
Yeah, man. Anyway, so on that level, I guess I'm glad this movie exists. Wish it was better though.
It's too bad it sucks.
Too bad it's awful. But so to the point where Burke consumes this guy's organization so much that this guy's right-hand woman like sasses him a little, and then he not only kills her but kills a whole group of people just to kill her in an elevator.
It's insane. I was like, this movie is casually violent for it being a cartoon.
Like crazy. This is another thing, to your point, Sal, of them just doing locations. We also keep introducing characters that do not end up not mattering. So we've been introduced to Sparky, right? And Sparky, this is another thing we love to do in the 90s, where it's like we've got a black male lead, and we've got a white female lead, and we're going to do everything right up until committing to it being romantic.
Oh yeah, no.
And then pull the ripcord on that, and it's like, okay, I don't know what to do with this, but fine. But anyway, so we've got Sparky, and we've also got Shaq's hot cop friend who is only there for a scene. It could have easily also been Sparky because her carp card gets messed up.
Yeah, that's right.
Because this is how Burke starts selling these future weapons that suck, by the way. Like, they do a lot of destructive damage, but they also misfire and shit. Like, Burke isn't as smart as Shaq, we establish.
Yeah.
He's selling his weapons to the drug dealer, who then passes, not the drug dealer, he's a weapons dealer. We just went over this. The weapons dealer, who then gives it to a local street gang, because we were very worried about this in the 90s. We were very worried about gangs. And this gang has an eye patch guy who has a name, but I don't remember it. We've got eye patch guy. All I remember about this gang is they spend about 90% of the heist celebrating the heist. They're like, yeah, we're doing a heist. Yeah.
It's like, they're really, I mean, you know what? They're very positive people, I got to say. That's how they get the recruitment up, because they're so positive. It's the only positive force in these kids' lives.
Yeah. So then they use that weapon. So Shaq and Ray J, I believe that's Ray J in the Ray J is in this movie. I believe his young friends Ray J. Are in the cop car, and the cop's like, I'm going to take this call while you're still in here, because we'd love to do that shit. Sure, her car gets blown up by one of the sonic guns. Shaq ends up having to save her and save Ray J. And there's also like a low-key Ninja Turtles plot where like Ray J's trying to get recruited by the gang that goes nowhere, like just completely gets dropped.
Which I'm like, what's the okay. I mean, like, they're like, we got to get the youth in there. Like, there's
Yeah.
too many old people in this movie. You know, it's all about old adults. The only, they were thinking like, oh, I'm making this really cool movie. It's about like adults, and they went like, whoa,
Mhm.
toys, like, because
Yeah.
there's no way. I mean, like, Batman and Robin exist because of Happy Meals.
Yes.
So I mean, like, look, if Steel became a sleeper hit, we're gonna get like Happy Meal toys and crap like that. Like, kids are they need an analog character. They need a character to identify with, to ride along with.
Yeah, who even says like, I could be Robin, I could be whatever, I could be.
Yeah, he says everything but a Superman character.
Yep. So yeah, Shaq ends up saving them. This is what gives him like, the weapons I help make are out on the streets. And
I was like, oh my god, this is Iron Man now.
Yeah, exactly. And so then he goes to recruit Sparky, who, like we talked about, is like catatonic or whatever. And
just he went to the cuckoo's nest with her. And I have to imagine maybe they're just that insane. And it is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Because what am I thinking of, right?
Yeah.
The scene where Chief kills McCready. Is it McCready? Well, Jack Nicholson.
Yeah.
And then breaks the window and jumps out and leaves. Like,
that's right.
And they're all like, woo! And they're all like yelling. Like, I'm like, are we stealing from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest because you don't know what else to do?
Yeah, that's right. Because I love it, man. This is another moment where instead of just opening the window, Shaq like pushes the window off the wall, like the whole frame, just boom. And then everybody's cheering, and he like takes her out. And then it's also like, what is it, Officer and a Gentleman or whatever, where he like sits her up.
Yes. Yeah, needle drop, and he like leaves with her, and she's like, "Yay!" And I'm like, "What the hell is happening?
What is going on?" So, the what we do get out of this whole thing is, so this is where we get to the junkyard. This is where he sets up his operation. I actually don't hate his little, because this is something that has become a staple of superhero movies. We got our little team of people, our little supporting people in the chair, right? So, and not to be sorry, it's a character in a wheelchair, but she is Shaq's guy in a chair. That's her job,
right? Exactly.
And then we get Shaft himself. Is Richard Roundtree, who's in
this movie.
Haven't even established at this point in the movie. He's just like, hey, by the way, I'm here, and like, God damn it, is that Shaft?
Yeah, and I'm like, where did you come from? Like, did we establish you at any point?
Because we have this whole bit with his grandma who doesn't want her souffle to fall or whatever, and it's like we couldn't have introduced Richard Roundtree a little bit earlier. Oh, dude, I glossed right over. I'm looking over my notes. I glossed right over the foot chase with Shaq as he chases this robber. Who the whole chase, the robber has one of the future guns strapped to his back, and it's like, fucking just shoot him. Just shoot Shaq. Just shoot him.
Yeah.
And then Shaq gets shot in the back of the head and is fine. It's like, wait, I'm so sorry. How powerful are these guns supposed to be?
It's just, well, they're really powerful, but they're not as powerful as Shaq is big.
Yeah, you know what? Truer words have never been said.
Did Richard Roundtree say yes to this because he thought it was going to be like Meteor Man, and he didn't say yes to that? Like, because Meteor Man is another, like, it's mostly, I mean, it's a superhero origin story, but it's also like clearly like about something like being black in America, and it stars like a huge, like, it's just an entirely who's who of like black actors in that movie, but he's not in it. Was he like, oh no, I said no to Meteor Man, I gotta be in this? Like,
well, here's the other one, and this would be tricky, but like part of me, because again, part of my brain really wants us to connect. I'm like, could we have brought back Richard Pryor's Gus Gorman?
Oh,
could we have gone?
Yes, there's no way Pryor would have been like, yeah, I'll do that. Like, there's no way he would have been like, I feel good about this.
Well, he wasn't, because at this point he was in a wheelchair, and then I believe he did his last movie role this same year, 97.
Oh,
but that was David Lynch's Lost Highway, and so it's like,
oh yeah, no, you say yes to Lynch.
Yeah, you say yes to David Lynch. That's of course. Yeah. But it was one of those, like, I feel like Gus could have been in here, and then I would have known. Okay, so this is Superman. This is Superman.
Right. Okay, this is set in the Reeves universe.
Yeah. I could have said Richard Roundtree was Gus Gorman, maybe.
Oh, that's fun. Yeah, okay. That would have been fun.
If he became, like, no offense to Richard Pryor, who's a legend, but if he became like a lot cooler. Like a lot cooler.
Oh, yeah, no, and from him. Yeah.
We even get a Shaft joke in there. They also, this is part of their pitch to get Sparky on board, and they're like, yeah, look at this like computer circuit board thing. It just fell off a truck. And I'm like, what timeout, guys? Are we against thieves or are we for what are we what
Right? No, it's okay as long as it's for us. Like, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah, we like to do that stuff. It's like, well, as long as
Yeah.
we're the ones doing it. So this is where we get a whole thing where they're building out the Shaq armor, the steel armor. This is where we see Shaq's Man of Steel tattoo, which is the only explicit Superman reference in the movie.
Yep.
And this is where after the suit's built, he goes and stops a random mugger, except it's not a random mugger. It's John fucking Hawkes as a random mugger. It blew my mind. And John Hawkes is an incredible actor. He is.
Yeah, I thought he looked familiar. I was like, why are you in this?
He is awful, and it has to be the directing because he's playing a full-on cartoon character. And this is what I'm talking. This is what I was talking about earlier, where like Shaq, full-on Iron Man armor. This guy robs a rich couple coming from like an opera or play or something, and he like wrecks this dude, like pins him to a wall. Yeah. And it's like, I don't. Maybe let that one go again. Like maybe stick with the super weapon fight thing. Like don't lower yourself to this bullshit.
Right.
But whatever, man. Also, yeah, then he immediately gets notified that there's a gang fight going on, and he goes to stop that. And this is where we get glowing. I've glossed over a lot of the dialogue on this movie.
It's fine. That might trick people into seeing this movie.
Yeah, but I did want to point out this one to give you a sense of it. This is, I believe, it was a Latino gangster says, "Please, fool, I'm about to smoke you like a blunt." Before he shoots him. And again, I want to emphasize this was written and directed by a white guy. He did apparently go to downtown LA to
I'm glad that you brought this up. It's so important to just he went to downtown LA and interviewed the youth. So they just trolled him.
Yep. Yeah. You're like, no, this is definitely and even if they didn't, it's one thing to be told this stuff. It's different to like use it in the context of how it would be used, but definitely this one is not. Well, I'm going to smoke you like a blunt. Get the fuck out of here.
I mean, what else am I going to do with it? But I love that. Yeah, I want to believe that they trolled him, and I want this movie to be choked with references that make no sense and are just made up by sassy kids from the 90s.
Yes, please and thank you. This is where we're going to get a kind of a showcase of all the. This is the fun and games. We love to do this
fun and games
movies. Yeah. Where it's like, here's all the tricks Steel can do. His suit is bulletproof, although he is pretty casual about the fact that he has a giant mouth hole.
Yeah, which they do shoot at, but miss conveniently all the time.
Yeah. So he's bulletproof. He's on his little hammer. This is okay. So it's a hammer because in the comics it's a hammer. It's a gun. He uses it like a gun.
Straight up gun.
It's just a fucking gun. I don't even think he even hammers anybody with it ever, does he?
No. He just holds it like a hammer most of the time. But yes, it is not. He doesn't hammer anything with it. He does refer to it as a hammer.
No, but it's he uses it like a gun. Anyway, so he's got a special hammer gun, and he also has a magnetic thing that in this scene draws everybody's guns to him. And then they all run off. And the cop shows up. He has a grappling hook, which the tensile strength, it does break later, but the tensile strength on that thing, guys, it's got to be insane.
Yeah. You can patent that. You can lift a shank.
And that's one of the things I love. We do this even in more grounded movies like Batman Begins, where he's got the classic little grapple gun. I'm like, how much cable is in that little gun you got there?
It's thinner but stronger, so you can fit more in there.
Sure. So anyway, they end up chasing him back to the junkyard, and I love that too. Like police copters follow him to the junkyard, and then he disappears in a pile of junk, and they're like,
gone.
Yes, we're not going to get a warrant to search this place. I guess he's just gone for good. Oh well, too bad for us.
Yep. They just give up, like they absolutely would if they were pursuing a black man in LA.
Black man in LA, and they see exactly where he goes, but unfortunately, we can't get in there. There's just no way.
There's no legal precedent to go in there, so I guess we'll just have to give up.
We'll just have to give up forever. Except later in the movie, we'll get to that. This is where they do this throughout the movie, but Shaq and Sparky like to touch tips. They do. It's just they touch little ET fingers together.
Yeah, they do. That's weird.
It's a weird thing.
Feels like an actor decision.
Maybe. This is where we get to a sequence I actually really like the way the sequence is put together. So he's out patrolling. The bad guys decide to rob the Federal Reserve in LA, but the way it's paced, I thought was really effective because they start getting police reports, and then the radios go out and their signals go out, so they have to change to a different band, and it's just layered in a really they start piecing together like, okay, so we have these bits of information. It must be the Federal Reserve, and I'm like, okay, all right, yeah.
There's a movie in here somewhere. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It really is well constructed. It's almost like they had another movie in here and then they added steel components to it.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, Sal, because we talked about. I'm actually liking Daredevil Born Again so far, but you can really feel that there's two different shows in every episode.
Oh,
and one of the shows is very good, and one of them is not as good. And
yes,
and the whiplash.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, the whiplash can be kind of jarring at times.
It sure is. It is very much, because there's stuff where I'm like, this is fun. I'm not having nearly as much fun per episode as I was in the last 3 seasons.
Yeah, it's because you'll get stuff like there's a scene where like Kingpin. Sorry, everybody, Daredevil talk. Kingpin is like stopped by like, and there's a giant like hole in the highway, and I was hoping maybe like there's the Hulk or something. You know what I mean? Like
no,
but he comes out like, why is there this hole here? And I'm like, one of the construction workers come out, sorry, Kingpin, it's red tape, and I'm like, get this. This is awful. Like, what is this? But then you get a scene like this episode where both Matt and the DA give their closing arguments.
Yeah,
and I'm like, this is actually because Matt, he's the hero, and he gives his closing arguments like, yeah, Matt, you nailed it. And then the DA gives his closing arguments like,
destroys it.
This is actually a pretty good argument. This is
I was like, oh my god, Matt lost.
Yeah. And so. And it's just one of those like, wait, so my concern is because I don't know. Obviously, they had one show and then they brought in new showrunners. My concern is that what if the original show was the good one and replacing it with the bad? Because I don't know which part is which. I'm like, what if the bad one's the one that we're going to get for the other? Although, but I know some people have had all 9 episodes and overall the consensus seems to be it's very good. So I'm hoping a lot of the good stuff is the redirection.
Okay, I would hope so.
Yeah,
because it looks very inexpensive.
It's weird. It's weird because you're right, but then you get scenes like the New Year's scene where Kingpin's addressing like all of New York.
Yeah, that looked really good.
I don't remember anything looking that big in the Netflix show.
No, but they were smart in the Netflix show about where to shoot and how to shoot it and to not make it that big. Like that was a good looking show. The scene where White Tiger and Matt are talking in the prison cell and there isn't a speck of grime or dirt between the grout of the prison cell.
That's you're right.
I was like, this is the wall that you built today.
Yeah.
And I don't want to harp on walls or anything, but like it looks like a set.
Yeah.
Like everything that is a set looks like one.
Yeah.
Like the diner looks like a diner because they shot in a diner. But like everything on a rooftop looks like I just put my NECA action figures on top of a rooftop set, put on a smoke machine, and now I'm photographing action figures.
We'll see. Yeah, I'm hoping that my understanding is the first 4 episodes are kind of the most Frankenstein, and then so I'm kind of hoping once we get out of that into the new direction, it kind of reminds me about because famously in this is the Steel Show. Sorry, everybody. It kind of reminds me in the Netflix show. Drew Goddard wrote like the first 2 episodes and then he got replaced as showrunner, and you could feel that you can like, oh, it's not quite as drastic or jarring, but it's like, oh, why didn't we keep Drew Goddard? Why didn't we keep him? He was doing really good. What happened? Anyway, but whatever point we were trying to make. So the details here with the height, and so Steel shows up, and this is the classic where now he's fighting people. They make a big deal, by the way, that Jeep has the same type of armor he has. At the final action sequence, he drives out of a building in that Jeep and then leaves it. I'm like, no, you told me that's the new Steelmobile. That's what you implied to me when you said it has the same armor.
100%, that's the Steelmobile.
Yeah, but whatever. Anyway, his little hammer gun, it doesn't work on it. It's a whole thing, right? It's a whole fight. He ends up getting his ribs broken, I think, because he gets hit by the Sonic whatever. This involves him in a motorcycle. He also is able to escape in a much more effective way than like when he goes in the junkyard, there's like trapdoors and shit. Like it couldn't have just been a gate in a shed. I don't know why we're doing all this.
Like all this complicated, because we're making a superhero movie. It's a superhero thing.
Like as a kid, you're right. As a kid, I would have thought that was cool. As an adult, I'm like, the gate could just open like a gate, and it could just be a shed. The one that got me though is in this with the motorcycle. He does like the whole Knight Rider thing where he like rides the motorcycle up into a truck. I'm like, that is cool. I'm a fan.
Always fun. I'm never not going to be okay with that.
That was dope. Anyway, so now things are escalating, and I wish we did more. it's funny how parts of the Burke's plan are ahead of their time, because this attack is basically an ad for his weapons, and so like people. Classic Colombian, 90s bad guys, Colombian drug lords, neo-Nazis. Let's keep an eye on those guys. That's going to be a bigger problem.
I think make sure we don't have any of those.
Yeah, I think those ended up being a bigger problem than we thought they were going to be in the 90s.
That's why they worked in a superhero show for us. We're like, that's so cartoonish and silly. No one would openly admit to being one of those.
Yeah, when also, you're right, because it's like, superheroes famously punched those in the past. Guess what? They're going to have to again. They're going to have to again.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then the SWAT team just knock. We have a warrant. Literally, like, boom through the window. But this is where we get where Shaq is effective because he's like picking these guys up like rag dolls. I believe that.
That's actually it's one of the best scenes of action in the movie because he is just like grandma no, just like throws these dudes.
Yeah, and it's awesome. And you're seeing him like I actually think Shaq might be picking those people up. Like
he's like I mean I'll bet there's a brace just because they're like he has to be in the Olympics. Like there's no way we can like hurt. He's insured for more than the movie's worth.
Yep. You're 100% right. You're 100% right. But it's so funny. Anyway, because he's just throwing those people around like rag dolls. And then I makes me want them to do like everybody. Did Shaq play with Kobe? I don't know who Shaq played with in the Lakers. Anyway. Anyway, I wish he would like fastball special he's so big, just fastball special another player up to do a dunk or whatever.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm showing my Barkley, there we go. I'm showing my lack of sports knowledge, everybody. I apologize.
Yeah.
So anyway, he's arrested. There's a whole to-do where Sparky gets him out. It's not awful.
It could be more embarrassing.
100%. It's your classic superhero, like she's doing voice analyzer and taking. It was the 90s. We were obsessed with computers and what computers could or couldn't do then. And so she computers his way out of the prison, but she ends up getting kidnapped by Burke's dudes to be there for the gun sale. I guess that I don't know why it doesn't matter. So then Shaq and Richard Roundtree go to save the day. Basically, we're here, gang. It's their final conflict. I don't know about you, Sal, but I'm like, wait, this looks like we're getting ready for the final act, but there's only like 14 minutes left. How are we
movie's really short.
How are we gonna wrap all this up? Don't worry, gang. Shaq ends up getting held hostage, but he gets out of it by using he tricks Burke into flipping the magnet on his hammer, which for some reason before it drew everybody's guns to him. And we established the future guns are not magnetic, but there's a lot of non-future guns in that room that none of them get drawn to the steel armor because we end up getting a big shootout. This is where we pay off the free throw thing where Burke has this one henchman who is the deepest voice I've ever heard in a movie. And he throws a grenade in with Shaq and Ray J. Why is Ray J there? I don't even remember how.
I don't remember how he gets in there, but yeah, he's there too.
He's there. It doesn't matter. And then they have henchman guy pulls the pin, throws the grenade in the room.
Yeah.
Sequence plays out a little something like this. Shaq is like, "Oh no, a grenade." Ray J's like, "Don't worry." And instead of Ray J throwing it, he hands it to Shaq. "You need to throw it through that thing." Shaq's like, "Oh man, but I never do these 3 throws." Ray J is like, "Don't worry. Here's what you do. You got to bend your knees. You got the whole time." I'm like, how long?
This grenade is. Yeah, you're dead.
Bend your knees, and then you shoot like this. You loosen up, and then Shaq does it. And by the way, he does. In the real world, he doesn't make that shit. That grenade is about ready to bounce out, but we cut away and cut back and it falls through. I'm like, well, thank God for editing because that grenade was about ready to come back into that room and blow them up. And then Shaq jumps over him, which is what he should have done to begin with, and protects him from the grenade blast. It kills the henchman. Burke, don't worry. You're thinking Burke's our main bad guy. Does he have his own steel armor? No. He has a super cannon or whatever. And the second he launches it, it bounces right off Shaq's armor, right back into Burke, killing Burke.
Boom. I mean, like, you know what? I appreciate it. I'm so glad he's not like, we're not so different, you and I. The modifications of my own. And Judd Nelson would be like, he's like, I'll be dead in the ground before I wear one of these silly ass outfits. I am Judd effing Nelson. All right.
He does get that one moment where he's about ready to like, are you going to give up your hammer or I'm going to kill Sparky? And Shaq gives up his hammer. It's like, that's the difference. Is I would have saved my own ass. So he does get a little bit of the difference between us. But by the way, Sparky, don't worry. Sparky also has guns in her wheelchair. It's a superpower.
You didn't even talk about how her wheelchair becomes like a friggin' full mobile armor unit. And she's like firing missiles and stuff and spinning around in a circle and then just zips out of there. And
like, my favorite detail is she spins in a circle, just starts shooting, and just because they wanted you to know that she's not like aiming, it bounces off of Shaq's armor. Like, well,
yeah, him with lead too. He'd be dead too. It was just, and he's like, oh, and I'm like, no.
Oh man! But anyway, they all get out. This all culminates in we've had a running gag of Grandma wanting to run her own like French New Orleans fusion. New Orleans makes it not seem like a fusion. It's like a French fusion thing she got going on. She finally gets her souffle to stand. They all laugh. They're like, ah, ha, ha. And she's like, yeah, that Steel guy, he's not so bad. I would be, any woman would be really proud to have Steel as a part of her family. Wink, wink. Does she know? Unclear. And this is where we get like, Sparky's like, don't worry. Listen, check out this new thing I did in my wheelchair. It makes me stand up or something. Yeah. And this is where your two leads would kiss, but they just hug awkwardly. And I'm like, well, okay, I guess.
Okay, I guess. Is there a director's cut where it's clear that they're in a interracial couple? No.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was weird.
It's one of those things where, like, on the one hand, I don't really have any chemistry, but the chemistry really is friend chemistry. It's just weird that we keep doing this in movies. Like, God forbid we have an interracial kiss in a movie. Yeah, like I just mentioned Men in Black. Men in Black does the same thing.
Yes, it does.
Anyway,
but Will Smith is way more overt about it.
Yeah, well, there's an exchange that's supposed to be like she's coming on to him or whatever.
Yeah, and he is like, I'm gonna shake the paint off the walls.
yeah.
And I'm like, all right. I mean, like, it's a little aggressive, but she seems into it. She's Linda Fiorentino. If you're not familiar, she's kind of like a sex femme fatale type of actor. She's in a lot of movies where she like gets down. So like it's implied.
Yeah, but it's also one of those I did think about before I saw that Men in Black was the same year. I'm like, because I was trying to think of another actor that I couldn't think of another actor at the time that has the same physicality as Shaq, which like who has the same
like Grace Jones.
Yeah, but I was thinking like Will Smith and Steel. Will Smith and Steel might not be the it would be.
Oh yeah.
And then I remember he's doing Men in Black at the time. I'm like, yeah, he would never do this.
But he did want, like, he was a Static fan. So he was pushing for Milestone stuff.
Oh my God.
If you go back,
movie, man.
We don't talk about this. Watch old episodes of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and go to the boat. It's like to the pool house, boat house, whatever the hell they called it, where he stayed, his house. Yeah. It has original Static covers on the back wall. It's like, so what?
Cool, man. That's so
really cool.
Dude, he's producing that new Bel-Air show. Pick the kid playing young him in the Bel-Air show. He'd be a great Static.
That was it. Listen, Gunn mentioned Milestone being part of the plan. So,
dude, you got to, man. And I know there's some right stuff with them, but Milestone,
they cleaned it up. They took care of it. It's over.
Good, because the Milestone stuff, characters like Static and Hardware and Blood Syndicate add such a unique texture that the rest of the DCU doesn't have.
Yeah.
And I know the instinct, because I know in the comics right now they're their own pocket thing. Yeah. I'm a big proponent of like, no, if you can't integrate that into the DCU, specifically Static, I'd say Blood Syndicate too, because I don't think there really is a super team like Blood Syndicate anywhere. I think they're very unique. The only tricky one is Icon, because like how many Supermen do we need running around?
Yeah, but like they've used him already. Like Icon was integrated into Young Justice and stuff like that.
He was. He was.
They made it work, and you can make. I mean, Icon and Rocket would be cool. Like I'd want to see that dynamic.
Dude, that's the thing, man. The Milestone characters are so cool. They're just cool. They're cool in a way that a lot of the DCU doesn't have. And it's like, use that. And it was the same thing. It's one of the things I liked about the New 52 is the integration of Wildstorm characters and Milestone characters into the DCU, because they added something that they didn't crack it in the New 52. Unfortunately, they didn't do it in a way that I think readers really responded to, but I think the instinct was correct. It's like, these guys should be a part of the DC universe proper. You just have to figure it out. But anyway, that's Steel Gang. Everybody's happy. The day is saved. Everybody tune in for Steel 2. No, next time Superman Returns. Another. We'll see. You know what? I haven't seen Superman Returns since theaters, so I'm excited to revisit that one.
Yeah.
So Sal, remind the kids at home where they can find you.
You can always find us at youtube.com/comic pop and youtube.com/comic pop returns. Podcasts, conversations, comics galore. Check them out.
Check it out. Sal's also been doing episodes of Only Stupid Answers with me. You guys can check that out over my other channel, Only Stupid Answers. But if you want our Patreon exclusive shows like Mutant Academy or Spider-Versity, you can check that out at patreon.com/Only Stupid Answers. I want to thank everybody that joined us live. Please, if you can, go over to dangerboycomic.com, support my comic. If you love superheroes, if you love comics, if you just want something new and fresh, you can please go check it out, support indie comics. Stuff like this literally would not exist without you. Shows like this don't exist without your support. So I want to thank everybody that did the super chat, everybody that's a patron. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.